Alright guys, I got another Buddy Fight deck profile coming at you. As you guys know, one of my favorite decks is actually the Dragon Knights from Dragon World, run by Noboru in the show. I had the deck at one point, then it ended up getting lifted off me at an event. So I've finally been able to recollect all of the cards I need to rebuild the deck. And I've been teching around with a few ideas, so the deck might seem kind of wonky right now. So I'm still working on it, but I thought I'd put up, the build of it I've been being more successful with at the moment. Alright, let's get this started off. Clearly Dragon World. My buddy is Dragon Knight El Quijote. This is that golden buddy pack special buddy rare version of him. I just like to use the one higher rarity as the buddy. That's just my own personal thing. Let's get started. Alright, of course with El Quijote being my buddy, means I'm going to run 4 Dragon Knight El Quijote. I think in any Dragon Knight deck, he's kind of essential to it. Namely because anytime he deals damage, you get to gain a gauge. Which is great for, going from no gauge to then being able to actually use your impact. Then we have from the newer stuff, Dragon Knight Lennis. Anytime she moves, you're able to gain a gauge, which is awesome for the deck. It gives El Quijote's skill a little bit less importance, in my opinion, but it's still like an essential card for the deck. I'm thinking of bumping it up to 4. Next up, I have Dragon Knight Tome. Its call cost is pay 1 gauge, and if you have a Dragon Knight in the drop zone, you can draw a card. And finally, just because it's a card I like to run, Dragon Knight Socrates. Anytime you are attacked, you can pay a life and drop a Dragon Knight from your hand to nullify an attack. This can nullify a link attack or really anything coming at you. I think the deck I ended up building for myself is somehow a mix between trying to be defensive and stally and kind of aggressive. So I think I pretty much stated that. Alright, I have 3 Dragon Knight Moscado. Just your vanilla, but just a big beater with 5,000 power, 6,000 defense, and a crit of 3. So he becomes a bastard to get over. I run, and someone was actually making fun of me for this, but it's actually pulled through for me so many times. 1 copy of Dragon Knight Vlad Dracula. For anyone who hasn't seen the new show, the newer version of him for Dungeon World, he does the exact same thing for each version of himself. The only difference is the Dragon Knight version has a limit to how many crits he can gain. He can only gain 6 crits. Whereas the Dungeon World variety can gain as many as are actually in the drop zone. He has no maximum limit. Alright, and then we got Dragon Knight Richard. When there's 4 different Dragon Knights in your drop zone, he gains 4,000 attack and 4,000 defense permanently. So he becomes an 8k body, which is really hard to get over without a link attack. It's where things like Socrates are kind of, useful. Then I run 3 Dragon Knight Lincoln. I like him on the field because he just says, if any Dragon Knight deals damage, pay a gauge, and you may draw a card. So he helps you generate some advantage for things like Socrates, as well as, being able to line your drop zone with Dragon Knights. Okay, next up, we have Dragon Knight Tutankhamun. If I have 5 or more different Dragon Knights in my drop zone, I can choose a card from my drop zone and take it back. So if I needed a green Dragon Shield or a blue Dragon Shield, I could get those back. And for our other grade 3, we have 2 Dragon Knight Spartax. Spartax, just because he can take all the Dragon Knights on the field and put them into his soul. He has 9,000 power, 5,000 defense, a critical of 3, and the penetrate ability, as well as Soul Guard. So he's able to sit there and generate quite the advantage. Or if you're late game and you just need a wall, he becomes a wall. Moving on to our spells, like any dragon deck, you're going to run things like Dragonic Charge. If you don't know what that does, you cast it in response to anything else that happens on the field and gain 2 gauge. Can be during your opponent's turn or yours. 4, Green Dragon Shield. And I'm actually so glad that they reprinted this. For Blue Dragon Shield, I actually need to get some of the reprints for another deck I'm working on. And of course, Green Dragon Shield, you gain a life for nullifying. Blue Dragon Shield, you gain a gauge. Then I have 4 Night Energy. It's essentially, it gives your Dragon Knights 3,000 power and defense and the counterattack ability, which is pretty nice in the deck. And like I said, a lot of the cards in the deck can become a wall, namely Spartax and your size 2s and 3s become your walls. So for that, you have Cavalry Academy. For those of you who don't know what Cavalry Academy does, I run 4 of them just to stand a better chance of seeing at least 2 of them. It gives a plus 1,000 boost to their attack and defense permanently. So things like Dragon Knight Richard, which can become in 8,000, have the opportunity to become bigger. Spartax can become bigger. It makes the deck harder for your opponent to knock down easily. Except for, you know, the obvious things of Ozzy Dahaka, which can get over 10,000 powered bodies. Okay. Next up, we have, for our weapon, Cavalry Dragon Hyperion. Just like El Quixote, it takes and deals out damage. And when it does, I can gain a gauge. Has a power of 7,000 and a cast cost of 2 gauge. It's a beautiful card for this deck. I'm so glad they invented this. The downside to it is once you play it, you can only play Dragon Knight monsters. But if you're running a Dragon Knight deck, you're probably not having, you know, too many non-Dragon Knights in the deck. Next up, for our impacts, I have Dragon Cavalry Arts Ultimate Smash. This card is useful because if your center's open and you have 2 Dragon Knights and a weapon equipped, you can destroy all size 2 and lower on your opponent's field and deal out 3 points of damage. And then for my other one, I need to have 5 or more Dragon Knights in my drop zone. Don't have to be different, just 5 or more. Dragon Cavalry Arts, The Glorious Legacy. I pay 2 gauge and it'll let me draw 3 cards. Which, you know, is not bad for casting to gain your advantage, and once again, it has a lot of draw in the deck, kinda. Or chances to draw or build gauge. I'm still working on editing and coming up with the final product. So feel free to drop your opinion, leave a comment down below. But this is what I got so far, and I hope to put an updated version up soon. But keep on playing and look out for my video for the new Dungeon World Dragon Knights. Hopefully be up in the next few weeks or so. But keep playing, like the video, subscribe, and keep on watching. Catch you guys later.